They pushed me through the sliding glass doors like I was freight, not family. The wheelchair jolted against the threshold, my spine burned where the surgeons had fused it. Evan didn't look back. He was already at the counter, pen scratching so fast it sounded like he was late for work, not signing away his father's life. Signature here, the clerk said. Initial beside fall risk acknowledgement. Evan tapped the page, annoyed. Which line? This one? Fine. I raised my voice. You going to read that or just pretend? He didn't tend to meet my eyes. Dad, it's set standard. Dawn set start. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and tell us where you're listening from. Maya stood at his side, smiling with the nurse, hair perfect, voice polished. We still take the platinum bundle, medication monitoring, mobility, upgraded meals, efficiency matters. I turned in the chair, pain sharp in my back. Efficient for who? For everyone, she said smoothly, like she was placing a brunch order. The CNA wheeled me down a hallway that smelled of bleach and boiled carrots. The overhead fluorescents hummed, too bright, buzzing like hornets. A bulletin board promised bingo night. 3 post-its sagged on a gratitude wall. One said, "Thanks for pudding." "Room 212, the aide said. Quiet sighed. "Quiet because no one tense left?" I muttered. She didn't answer. Inside, the wallpaper peeled. The second bed was already occupied by a man wheezing, each breath like a saw cut through wet wood. Evan shoved a clipboard toward me. "Dad, therapy release. Just sign." I scanned the fine print. Tesh chemical restraint sits. Why sits that here? Legal jargon, he said quickly. Legal jargon usually means they use it. Maya leaned in, voice syrupy. "Please, Harris, don't sit make this harder. They know what they sip are doing." I jabbed my finger at the radiator, rust bleeding through the paint. "This is what you call care. I built houses stronger than this with half the budget." "Stop," Evan said, sharp now. "Just sign." I set the clipboard down. "No." His eyes snapped up. For 1 second, I saw the boy who used to bend every nail and look to me for help. Then it was gone. "You signed POA last year. Remember? After the MRI, ISEP authorized." "Authorized to dump me here?" My voice cracked on the last word. I needed surgery, not a warden. He clenched his jaw. "This is temporary. You still walk again. Walk into my grave, maybe." Maya touched his arm. "We should go. He sits tired." "No," I said, forcing the words through my throat. "I septum not tired. I septum erased." Evan didn't reply. He handed the clipboard back to the clerk. They walked out together, silhouettes swallowed by the humming lights. When the door shut, a packet hit the tray beside me. "Your welcome materials," the aide said. I opened it after she left. On top, today's date, November 3rd. Underneath, a bill dated November 1st, 2 days before I arrived. Care Plus Deluxe Plan, $2,835. Fall risk monitoring, mobility training, grooming assistance. All phantom. I pressed my thumb on the date, 2835. My first receipt. I slid it under the mattress, top right corner. Dinner came at 5. Mashed potatoes that clung to the spoon like paste, peas rolling like BBs, turkey drowned in gray. The tray label read Hurricane 1R. I asked the aide, "Water?" She dropped a lukewarm cup. "Hydration station steps down the hall. We sep short-staffed." "Short how?" Her eyes darted. "We do our best." Then she left. The man in the other bed rolled over, his voice gravel. "Don, sit. Press the button. They come mad." I pressed it anyway when the pain shot through my spine like fire. The red light blinked. I counted. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi. At 9 minutes a nurse rushed in, gloves snapping. "What sep's your pain scale, Mr. Kane?" "Harris, 8. And you stir running 2 aides for 19 beds, right?" "We follow guidelines." "Guidelines ignored," I said. She pressed a cup into my hand. "Hydrocodone, 5 milligrams. Billed 2 days before I arrived," I said. Her face froze, then softened. "Try to sleep. Down the hall, the oven timer dinged. Not food, not anymore. In my house, that ding meant roast done. Family at the table, laughter. Here, it mocked me. You're finished. I whispered to myself, before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and tell us where you're listening from. My voice steadied in the dark, proof I wasn't invisible yet. Saturday, Evan returned, Maya behind him. He stood stiff, hands in his pockets. How sips the pain? Manageable. How sips it feel to sign your father away? His eyes flashed. Dad, don't debts. I pulled the November 1st bill from under the mattress and slapped it on the tray. Explain this. Maya peeked. It sips a package. Standard charges. For services I never received. Evan snapped. We SEP are protecting you. Protecting me? My throat tightened. You signed me off like surplus lumber. My own son. Silence fell. Only the wheeze of my roommate and the hiss of the vent filled the space. Maya tried for calm. Let the professionals do their jobs. This is the best plan. The best plan for your conscience, I spat. Not mine. She flinched. This hurts us too. No, it pays you in advance. Evan bent closer, voice low. Dawn sipped twist this. You needed help. I met his stare. I needed a hand, not a prison. He pulled back, jaw trembling. He didn't answer. They left in silence. That night, I asked a nurse for a pen. She frowned but handed me one. Donna spit, lose it. We SEP short. I flipped the wall calendar to November. In the box for February 3rd, I drew a red circle. Thick and closed. 3 months, I whispered. I sipped out in 3 months. The roommate coughed. Nobody leaves. Watch me, I said. The oven timer dinged again, faint but sharp. I smiled into the dark. Every ding is one step closer. Because I had my first receipt. My first circle, and I wasn't done. Not yet. By the end of the first week, humiliation had a routine. They taped my shower schedule on the door in big black letters. Monday, Thursday, Saturday. Assisted wash. I used to own properties across Dorchester, checklist pinned in my office. Subcontractors running on my clock. Now my life was taped like a child's core chart for anyone walking past to see. Sunday, a nurse dropped off lunch. Plastic cutlery clattered on the tray. I picked up the knife, flimsy, dull. What am I going to do with this? I asked. She smiled thinly. Safety protocol. Safety for who? For everyone, she echoed, same tone Maya had used. I stared at the fork until my hand shook. That's when I realized anger was still fuel, but shame. Shame seeps in and weakens you. That night, the pain flared. I pressed the call button. It blinked. 2 minutes, 20 seconds before anyone came. I wrote the time on a napkin with the pen I'd stolen. Numbers steadied me. Nora, a night nurse, slipped in later with a blanket. They don't stat staff nights, right? She whispered, tucking the edges. Radios are a fantasy. You didn't hear that from me. I nodded, throat tight. I not crazy then. You stir not crazy, she said. You stirred just in here. Maya visited on November 10th. She set a pharmacy bag on the table. We had your prescriptions filled. Premium coverage. It SIPs all billed to your account. I picked up the receipt. $412. The bag was light. I shook it. 2 bottles rattled. $400 for this? She waved her hand. Don't sit worry about the money. Don't set worry? My voice cracked. That sets my name on the bill. Evan appeared behind her, holding a styrofoam cup. Dad, stop. You star making it harder. Harder than being locked in here? You signed the POA, he said quietly. Like that excused everything. I wanted to scream. I remember the pain, not the clauses, but my pride choked me. I swallowed it the way I swallowed the cafeteria's gray gravy. When they left, I pulled the towel over my face and cried. Not loud, not the way you'd picture. Silent into the fibers so the wheezing man beside me wouldn't hear. Tears felt like weakness. And weakness was what they were counting on. Days blurred. The oven timer kept dinging at odd hours, sharp, merciless. Each time it dragged me back to my old kitchen. Sunday roasts, Evan and Maya at the table before greed hollowed them out. Now the ding was a countdown. On November 14th, I caught another slip. Lunch tray listed spinach quiche, deluxe entree. What arrived was soggy toast and cold eggs. Deluxe on the paper, scraps on the plate. I flagged the aide. She shrugged. That sep's what the kitchen sent. Then the kitchen owes me $16. She blinked, then laughed, like I sept had told a joke. You star funny, Mr. Kane. My name is Harris. She left without writing it down. I started keeping a log, pen on napkin, later transferred to the calendar margins. Date, time, charge, reality. November 14th, call button, 7 minutes. Deluxe entree, missing. November 15th, PT session listed. Therapist never came. November 16th, $412, pharmacy bill. Only 2 bottles delivered. Each line was proof. Proof that I wasn't delusional. Proof they thought I was too broken to notice. Sunday lunch, November 17th. Evan came again, dressed sharp like he was heading to brunch after. He leaned across the table in the visitors' septic lounge. Dad, you have to stop fighting. The POA gives me authority. This is for your own good. I stared at his face, searching for the boy who once followed me with a plastic hammer, begging to help build. All I saw was a man protecting his image. You think a signature erases me? I asked. He rubbed his temple. You don't understand. If I don't manage things, bills pile up. Assets get messy. I said, trying to protect what you built. You mean inherit what I built. Maya smoothed her dress, cutting in, Eventus right. We star the next generation. We can set afford for you to mismanage. Mismanage? My voice broke. I laid every brick in my life straight. I earned it nail by nail, and you, my throat closed. I had to bite my lip to keep from sobbing in front of them. Maya whispered, We stare not the enemy. I stared at her cold smile. Then stop acting like it. They left after 10 minutes, complaining about parking fees on their way out. That night, Nora found me sitting upright, log in hand. What are you writing? She asked. Names, dates, times, charges. Why? Because pride says stay quiet, I said. But survival says write everything down. She gave me a long look, then nodded. Good, keep writing. They don't expect that. Her words hit me harder than any painkiller. They don't expect that. I circled November 21st on my calendar. That's when billing cycle closed. That's when I demand itemized charges. The oven timer dinged down the hall. Mocking, sharp, I whispered to myself. Every ding is another entry in the log. I wasn't set it crazy. I wasn't set it weak. I was documenting. And when the time came, every line I wrote would be a weapon. On November 21st, I wheeled myself to the front desk and asked for itemized billing like I was ordering coffee. The receptionist blinked. Billing is downstairs. Appointments only. I'll wait, I said, planting the brake lever like a stake. Downstairs smelled like paper and damp carpet. A plastic plant drooped by a copier. A woman with a Northlight lanyard, Tammy, looked up, surprised to see a patient without a chaperone. Hi there, she said brightly. How can I help you, Mr. Kane? Harris, I said. Itemized bills for November. Every day. Every line. I want CPT codes, units, who signed and when. Her smile thinned. We normally send summaries. I supped and not a summary. She hesitated, then stood. Give me a minute to print. I listened to the machine chew out my life in pages. Behind me, a low voice drifted through a half-closed door. If we push the PT units into next week's SEPS cycle, we can... Another voice cut him off. Just make sure sign-offs match. The door opened. Len Doyle, the administrator, stepped out in a navy blazer too tight at the buttons. He clocked me, the wheelchair, the stack of paper building in Tammy Sep's tray. His smile didn't touch his eyes. Everything all right, sir? Looking at my bills, I said. You? Always, he replied, then vanished down the hall. Tammy slid the stack across 3 stapled pages, November 3rd, 20. My thumb caught on the staple like it wanted blood. I scanned the lines until the pattern hit me. Here, I said, tapping the first page. 11/12, physical therapy. 2 units at 10 o'clock, 10:30 a.m. Then again 11 o'clock, 11:30 a.m., same clinician, same initials. But I was in imaging at 11:15. See? I held up a radiology slip they'd left in my chart by mistake. Chest X-ray, 11:12 a.m., room 1. Tammy glanced at the page. It says probably a documentation error. Great, I said. Let's correct the charges. And here 11/14, deluxe entree, spinach quiche, $16. What I got was cold eggs. Want a photograph? Because I took one. I raised my phone. The photo showed a sad gray plate. A date stamp glared in the corner. She licked her lips. I can submit an adjustment request. Submit to, I said, flipping to duplicate PT entries on 11/16. Same times. Same initials. No therapist ever showed. I tapped the line with the tip of my pen. This isn't setter rehab. It setters arithmetic. Tammy swallowed. I settle escalate. Escalate to whom? She looked at the door Len had gone through. Administration. Perfect, I said. Escalate to the man whose blazer doesn't fit. Her eyes widened. Sir, I said escalate, and print a running balance. She printed. The number at the bottom looked like a tire mark. $7,482. Aimed at my savings, my dignity, my name. I folded the pages and slid them into the folder I'd started, Northlight. Receipts. The first divider read billing. Back in 212, I laid the papers flat on the tray, smoothing the edges like lumber. The oven timer dinged faintly from upstairs. A metronome counting down, telling me it was time to build. That night, Nora scooted in, half-whisper. You disappeared. Where sip do you go? Downstairs, I said, tapping the folder. Found duplicate PT charges and a menu that lies. She exhaled. You set not the first to notice, just the first to document. How bad are nights? She stared at the door, then back at me. I had 14 patients last night. 2 wound vacs, a fall risk, an IV that wouldn't set flush. We chart what we can, not what we should. They bill like they staff a hospital. Names, I said. She shook her head. I can set not yet, then, softer. But if you keep it in your words, in your dates, nobody can take that away. I wrote Nora. Night ratio in the margin of November 21st and underlined it twice. November 25th. I rolled into Ava Chen's office on Boylston Street. Walnut shelves, framed diplomas, a pot of green tea that smelled civilized. Ava wore calm like armor. Mr. Kane, Harris, she corrected herself. Warm smile. You said on the phone you set her in a facility not by choice. Not by choice, I echoed, handing her the folder. They scepter billing services I didn't scepter get, and my son scepters waving a POA like it scepters a deed. Ava flipped through pages with the clean efficiency of a surgeon. Pre-billing on November 1st for a November 3rd admission. Duplicate PT units. Deluxe meals not delivered. She looked up. You said been busy. Busy staying real, I said. They expect fog. I brought a flashlight. She poured tea. Tell me about your assets. I watched steam curl in the cup and said the number out loud because I wanted to hear how it sounded in this room. $10.02 million in a trust I amended 2 years ago. Muni bonds, 4 triple net leases they deposit without drama. And the POA. Signed after an MRI last year. I remember pain, not clauses, but the trust instrument. My signature is the only key. Ava's eyes softened. Approval, not pity. Good, then we do this by the book. Step 1, capacity evaluation. Independent, objective. Step 2, revoke the POA once capacity is confirmed. Step 3, ombudsman complaint. Quiet, detailed, with your evidence. Step 4, we assess Northlight's debt structure. If they're squeezed, they cut staff and pad bills. That's how you got quiche on paper and eggs on a plate. I felt the plan rise in me like heat in a well-built house. And step 5? A smile. If the numbers align, we find the lever they can set ignore like a balloon note coming due. We make sure the right person knows you can pull it. Buy the building, I said. She didn't flinch. If the leverage is there, I leaned in. I don't want revenge that just hurts. I want standards. That SEP's the only kind that lasts, she said. I schedule the eval this week. Meanwhile, keep logging names, dates, times, no exaggeration, no theories, just what happened. What about my son? I asked, and hated the crack in my voice. Ava let the silence sit, kind as a hand on a shoulder. We still address the misuse of POA when we have capacity verified. Then he gets notice, formal, unemotional. You stir setting boundaries, not burning family. I nodded. Boundaries hold up houses. She slid a retainer across the desk. Sign here. Also, I want you to meet someone. Victor Ruiz, licensed PI, ex-city inspector. He knows where these facilities cut corners. Send him, I said. She smiled. He likes coffee and invoices. We still keep you copied on both. I signed, the pen feeling heavier than it should. I've photocopied my driver's license, then returned it with a neatly tabbed copy of our plan. She was tidy in the way that makes bad men nervous. At the door, she added, if Len Doyle calls you SEP too many times, record the next call. Massachusetts is a one-party consent state. Your voice is the one that matters. I thought lawyers hated recordings, I said. Lawyers hate surprises, she replied. Recordings prevent them. Back in 212, I redesigned my folder like it was framing for a roof. TAB1, billing. TAB2, staffing. TAB3, PT cell OT. TAB4, pharmacy. TAB5, family/POA. I copied my napkin logs into a spiral notebook with a ruler straight left margin. My hands remembered the comfort of straight lines. On November 27th, a brochure slipped under my door. Northlight, a community of care. The back page listed a lender I recognized from a prior project. I called a broker I trusted, Danny C., and asked for public filings. At midnight, Danny texted a servicer summary, interest only through January, then a balloon in February. The numbers were dry, but to me they sounded like a clock winding down. I wrote in the margin, debt bites in Feb. Then I circled February and drew a tiny oven timer beside it. Nora glided in for vitals, saw the drawing, and huffed a laugh. Cute. It sets a war drum, I said. Then get some rest, General. She clipped the pulse ox to my finger. Victor Ruse stopped by earlier. Left a card, said to tell you he likes black coffee and ugly truths. I held the card, block letters. No nonsense. Victor Ruse, like cash, and a number. On the back he kept written, staffing boards, delivery logs. Back doors tell the truth. I propped the card against my water cup like a tiny signpost. Thought so, Nora said. Eyes warm. Happy Thanksgiving, Harris. Is it? Depends who's carving, she said, and slipped away. Down the hall, that oven timer dinged, clean as a verdict. I pictured Evan and Maya at some restaurant, linen napkins, plates like art. I pictured my trust papers in a drawer on Boylston, my name crisp, unshakable. I pressed my palm to the red circle on the calendar. February, and felt steadier than I had in weeks. This wasn't a tantrum. It was lumber, level, and line. Capacity eval, revoke POA. Ombudsman complaint. Debt lever. And if the numbers behaved the way numbers do, a closing table with my name on the deed. Revenge wasn't the point. Standards were, but standards, I knew, make the best revenge. Thanksgiving week turned into December without anyone saying grace. The halls were dressed with paper turkeys, construction paper feathers taped crooked to the doors, but the only real bird I saw was the one on my bill, deluxe entree. Turkey with cranberry glaze, $28. What arrived on my tray was reheated slices that tasted like damp cardboard. I circled the charge in my log. Evidence had become my appetite. On November 28th, I rolled to the nurse's station. The dry erase board listed staffing ratios: 3 CNAs on duty, 22 residents. But when I wheeled past the east wing, only one aide hustled between rooms, breathless. That night, Victor Ruiz walked in like a man who knew exactly where fire exits were. Black jacket, notebook tucked inside. He shook my hand firmly. "You Harris?" "Depends who, Sussex." "Guy who likes ugly truths," he said, flashing his license. "Let me see your logs." I passed him the notebook. He flipped pages, whistled low. "Yusef got timestamps like a cop. This is gold." "I sat on the builder," I told him. "Measure twice, cut once." He grinned. "You keep writing. I keep watching." The first photo he brought me looked ordinary, the staffing board taken at 11:07 p.m., 3 names written in marker. But below it, Victor had scribbled only 1 present, 2 off-site. "This is your smoking gun," he said. "Board says 3, reality says 1. I stared at the photo until my hands shook. "They bill for ghosts." He nodded. "And ghosts don't set wipe foreheads or lift bodies." I slid the photo into tab 2, staffing of my folder. The weight grew. On December 2nd, Nora came in during rounds, eyes darting. She slipped a folded sheet onto my tray. "Don't say I gave you this." I unfolded it. A PT progress note, signed with my name in block letters, but I'd never seen the therapist listed. "They such forging?" I whispered. She bit her lip. "Len pushes quotas. He wants charts filled, even if the bodies aren't set." I traced my forged signature with my finger. My own name turned into a weapon against me. "You stir a witness now," I said. She shook her head. "I'm just tired." But she stayed in the doorway a second longer, as if choosing sides without saying it out loud. On December 6th, I heard the oven timer ding while Evan and Maya visited. Evan paced near the window, checking his phone. Maya scrolled Instagram, posting ski lodge photos. "Dad," Evan said finally, "you look okay." "I'm better than okay," I said. "I'm paying for deluxe quiche that never arrives. Builds character." He frowned. "Why do you have to be difficult?" "Because you make it too easy," I snapped. "You signed me into fraud." "Stop calling it that." "Call it what you want. My log calls it theft." Maya lowered her phone. "You can live in paperwork, Harris. You need peace." "Peace comes with receipts," I said. "Want to see?" I opened the folder. The PT forgery, the staffing photo, the duplicate bills. Evan's face paled, just for a second. "You're going to ruin everything," he muttered. "No," I said, steady as stone. Going to fix it." The timer dinged again down the hall, cutting the air like a judge sips his gavel. Evan looked at the sound, then back at me. "What sips is your endgame?" "UCOC." On December 9th, Ava filed the first ombudsman complaint. I didn't hear her words, I heard her pen scratching, the same rhythm Evan had used at intake, but Ava's scratches meant rescue, not burial. "Quiet complaint," she said. "No fireworks. Let them think, you still powerless." I nodded. Let them think. December 11th. The capacity evaluation arrived. A young doctor in a crisp suit sat across from me with a clipboard. "Orientation questions," he said. "Do you know today's SIPS date?" "December 11th, I answered. "Do you want the time too?" "Where are we?" "Northlight Nursing Facility. Room 212. Smells like boiled carrots." He chuckled. "And who sips the president?" I smiled thin. "The one who sips not paying my bills." His pen tapped. Cognition intact. Judgment intact. Insight intact. He signed the sheet. "Mr. Kane, you scepter competent." I almost cried right there. Not from doubt, I'd never doubted myself, but from relief that someone wrote it down. Paper had buried me. Now paper would free me. December 12th. Ava came with a single sheet. Revocation of power of attorney. I signed my name slow, savoring every stroke. Evan just lost his crown. Hava slid it into her folder. Now we wait for the mail to do its work. The oven timer dinged again. Faint, I whispered. One ding closer. On December 20th, I sat in Ava's office again, folder in hand. Your loan payoff cleared, she said. 699,842. That frees liquidity. She handed me a new folder stamped Millbeam Holdings, LLC. What SEP's this? I asked. Your mask, she said. No one needs to know Harris Kane is buying. Millbeam walks into the room. You walk in last. I stared at the name. It felt like armor. Millbeam, I repeated. Victor leaned in from the corner, arms crossed. You play this right, Harris? You said you're not just walking out, you said you're walking back in on top. I closed my eyes, heard the ding of that timer again, but this time it didn't mock. It counted down to something bigger. For the first time in weeks, I let myself smile. Christmas lights flickered on the facility windows, but inside Northlight there was no warmth. The garland was plastic. The carols piped in from an old speaker that crackled on every high note. December bled into January the way gray snow turns to slush. Ugly, inevitable. I watched the charges pile up even faster than the decorations. $17 for continence kits that never touched my room. Deluxe entries that never left the kitchen. When I asked for the item itself, staff shrugged and said, supplies are short, but the bills never were. Victor kept feeding me photographs. Delivery logs missing half the boxes. Invoices with signatures that didn't match. He leaned against my tray one night, dropping a photo of Len Doyle clinking glasses at a steakhouse dinner. A company logo glittered on the menu behind him. Vendor sponsored, Victor said. Kickback dinner. Fancy wine, facility pays the tab later. I stared at Linambet's smug grin. How much was the bill? Over $6,000, Victor said. Guess who it trickles down to? Me, I said, bitter. And everyone wearing a wristband. I slipped the photo into tab 4, vendor abuse. The folder was getting heavy, thick as a contractor's bid book. Each piece of paper was a nail. January 5th, snow pressed against the windows, and Maya came in wearing a new coat, fur collar brushing her cheek. She set her phone on the tray, screen glowing with ski photos, her Evan and their friends at a lodge. She didn't even notice the receipt I laid flat beside it. Looks fun, I said. Bet the lodge served real quiche. She blinked at the bill. What SIP's this? Your pharmacy card. $412. For 2 bottles that never showed. That sets standard markup, she said quickly. Premium coverage. Premium fraud, I snapped. Evan walked in, shaking snow from his hair. Dad, don't start. I already started, I said. My hand on the folder. This is evidence. Not a tantrum. Evidence. The oven timer dinged from down the hall sharp, like punctuation. I tapped the bill. That SIP's the sound of truth ringing. Evan glanced at Maya, then leaned closer to me. His voice dropped. You stop spiraling. Spiral is how drains clear, I said. His jaw tightened. He pulled Maya toward the door. We sell talk later. You sell listen later, I called after him. On January 8th, I requested a family meeting. Ava joined me, cool and steady, papers in hand. We sat at a plastic table in the lounge, the snow outside turning everything white. Evan arrived. Late, Maya beside him, silent. Len showed up too, uninvited, smirk plastered on. Mr. Kane, Len said, syrup in his voice. How are we feeling? I leaned forward, like a man being robbed in daylight. Ava slid the $2,835 pre-bill across the table. Care Plus Deluxe, charged before admission. Illegal on its face. Lenja's smile faltered. Must be a clerical error. Clerical errors don't stet forged signatures, I said, pulling out the PT sheet Nora had slipped me. That SIP's my name. I never saw that therapist. Evan muttered. Dad, this isn't set the way. I turned on him. The way? You put me here. You signed me off like a spare tire. Now you want to lecture me about the way? Maya Sep's lips trembled. We didn't Sept know. Didn't us care. I cut her off. The oven timer dinged from the kitchen. Everyone heard it. The room froze, the sound hanging like a bell. That sits the sound of proof, I said quietly. January 12th. I signed the term sheet in Ava's office. She slid the pages across, each line crisp, purchase scheduled for February 7th, she said. Victor leaned against the wall, closing in 3 weeks. They won't see it coming. I took the pen, pressed it to the paper. Millbeam signs, I said. No, Ava corrected. Millbeam closes. You sell sign when it matters most. I signed anyway, slow and deliberate, feeling every letter. Back in my room, I stared at the calendar. The red circle around February 3rd looked like a wound. I drew another around February 7th, darker, deeper. 3 months of humiliation had turned into 3 weeks of fire. That night, Evan left me a voicemail. His voice trembled, soft in the way men sound when they're losing grip. Dad, this is spiraling. I don't know what you are doing, but please stop, for it gets worse. I listened twice, then pressed save. His spiral was my proof. The oven timer dinged again, louder this time. Or maybe I was just ready to hear it. I smiled into the dark. By mid-January, the air in Northlight was colder than the snow outside. Pipes knocked like guilty consciences. Staff hustled with clipboards they didn't fill. And Len Doyle kept parading the halls in that tight navy blazer, pretending everything was under control. But I could feel it, the cracks widening. On January 16th, a stack of new consent forms slid under my door. The dates were backfilled. One even claimed I'd agreed to increased mobility monitoring on December 10th. I wheeled into the nurse station, waved the papers. Did I sign these? The clerk looked up, startled. It sets in your file, Mr. Kane. My name's Sets Harris. And I didn't sign. She stammered. Maybe administration, maybe forgery, I snapped. Len appeared like smoke, smile plastered on. Mr. Kane, what seems to be the trouble? I slapped the papers onto the counter. Trouble is, these say I consented on December 10th. On December 10th, I was in physical therapy with a lumbar brace. Unless I walked out in my sleep, someone Sips lying. His smile twitched. Let Sits not make accusations. I don't just accuse, I said, voice low. I log, and logs don't just lie. Victor met me 2 nights later in the sunroom. The glass fogged with cold. He slid a thin folder across the table. Side LLC, he whispered. Side what? Lynchtis Shell Company. Payments from vendors funneled through it. Kickbacks, inflated invoices. Here, look. The paper showed deposits into Northlight Solutions LLC, a name only 1 letter away from the facility itself. Classic move, Victor said. He launders the bribes right under their noses. I stared at the numbers. Each deposit was a body left untended, a call light ignored, a meal downgraded. When do we drop this? I asked. Victor Sitz's eyes flicked to me. After closing. You own the building, you set the fire. January 20th, the snow piled high outside, and Evan showed up. He waited until Maya drifted toward the lounge, then leaned in close. Why Sips you hide money from us? He hissed. I pulled the Dr. Sips capacity evaluation from my folder and slid it across the table. He skimmed it, jaw tight. You don't get to hide behind MRI fog anymore, I said. Competent, judgment intact, signed by a doctor, black and white, his lips pressed thin. You stopped humiliating us. No, I whispered. You did that the day you signed me away. For once he had no comeback. The silence was the verdict. On January 24th, Victor took me on a tour of the boiler room. The inspector was with us, clipboard tucked tight. Len strutted behind, voice oily. Our systems are top-notch. We meet every code. The inspector bent, tapped a pipe that rattled. These valves haven't been serviced in 2 years. Glenn coughed. Oversight that Sips all. Victor smirked at me. His eyes said it plainly. We've got him. As the inspector scribbled notes, I rested my hand on the railing. The metal was warm, alive, humming with pressure. This was the heart of Northlight. And it was failing. just like Len's lies. By the end of January, the board had agreed to meet Millbeam Holdings. They thought they were meeting a faceless company with deep pockets. They didn't know Millbeam was me. The night before the meeting, February 6th, I ironed a blue shirt with steam rising from a mug of water. A small dignity, a reminder that I was still a man who cared how his collar looked. Nora peeked in. Big day tomorrow? I nodded. Board meets Millbeam. Her smile was tired but proud. About time someone set standards. The oven timer dinged down the hall. Not once, twice. As if it knew tomorrow would be the reckoning. I folded the shirt, laid it across the chair. 3 months of humiliation. 3 months of receipts, forged sheets, fake meals, ghost staff. My own son's betrayal. Tomorrow wasn't just a meeting. It was the day the shovel left Evan's hands and came back to mine. The elevator doors slid open at 9:26 a.m., and the administrative floor smelled like lemon polish and fear pretending to be confidence. I rolled out in my blue shirt, steam-pressed last night with a mug, and followed Ava's heels down the hall. She didn't hurry, she never did. Men in power hurry, people with leverage arrive on time. The boardroom was rectangular and smug, with a long ash wood table and a wall of glass facing a gray Boston sky. Coffee steamed in a silver urn. Someone had set out a plate of muffins like a peace offering. I parked at the corner, close enough to see everyone's eyes, far enough to make them move if they wanted to box me out. Len was already there, navy blazer, daring the buttons to hold. He grinned like a hotel clerk. Good morning, Mr. Kane. Coffee. He was careful with Mr. like the right honorific could erase the last 3 months. Black, I said. Strong. Like truth. He laughed too loudly. Love the attitude to the others. This is one of our residents. He's uply observing today SEFTA's discussion with Millbeam Holdings. Community inclusion. Ava took the seat beside me and slid a slim folder onto the table. We weren't set to be long. At 9:31, 2 board members shuffled in with cautious smiles. A dentist who liked to say big picture and a retired school administrator whose pearls clicked when she nodded. They shook Len's hand and avoided my eyes. The clock on the wall ticked toward 9:32. I could feel the building's breath in the vents, that low mechanical exhale that told me the boilers were working, barely. Ava glanced at her phone. Funds cleared at 9:32, she murmured. Like tapping a tuning fork. The room vibrated with a pitch only I seemed to hear. Len rubbed his hands. As you know, Millbeam has expressed interest in assuming operational liabilities in exchange for... Ava opened the folder and set the executed purchase agreement in the center of the table. Face up, like a card turned at the exact right second. No assumption of liabilities. Outright purchase, wire confirmed at 9:32 a.m. The mortgage is paid in full. The deed is recorded to Millbeam Holdings, LLC. Silence, the kind that makes coffee smell like burnt sugar. The dentist blinked. I thought today was negotiation. Avaset's voice stayed warm, almost bored. It was right up until the wire confirmation. The servicer signed off last night. This morning they confirmed receipt. Your balloon note was coming due in February. You had 1 door left open. We stepped through. Len smiled a little tighter. That sib's terrific. We still need time to coordinate. Our board remains seated until... I rolled my chair forward an inch, just enough to scrape the carpet. Every head turned. I rested my palm on the blue folder I set built over 3 months, and felt the weight of it. I said Paris, I said. Millbeam is me. Pearls clicked. The dentist's mouth fell open. Len's smile died, then reanimated as something meaner. Cute, he said. Even if you purchased certain assets, the operational authority is subject to the deed holder, Ava said, tapping the page with a pen that sounded like a gavel, and Millbeam is the deed holder. Effective 9:32 a.m. He tried again. We still need to schedule. We are scheduled, I said, right now. Evan arrived at 9:36, breathing hard, coat half on. He froze in the doorway, eyes catching the header on the document. Purchase and sale agreement. Northlight facility. He looked at me, then at Ava, then at Len, as if he'd walked into a dream where furniture didn't stay put. Dad, what is this? Standards, I said. He took a step into the room, face pale. You can set just. I didn't det just. I did, I said. I let the words settle. Sit down. He didn't. He hovered near the door like a man unsure if he wanted to fight or flee. Ava stacked 3 neat piles in front of me. The closing binder, the wire confirmation, and a thin set of letters in cream envelopes. She placed a pen on top, formalities first. I looked at Len. Mr. Doyle, your employment terminates today for cause, but I don't want a circus. You'll receive a separation proposal by 3 p.m. contingent on full cooperation with ongoing audits. Your side company, Northlight Solutions LLC, has vendor deposits that don't belong to you. We'll be clawing those back for resident care and capital repairs. You'll return your badge now. He laughed in short coughs. You can set. I can, I said, and slid a photograph across the table. Len at the steakhouse, company logo glowing behind him. Glass mid-toast. A date stamp in the corner. Vendor-funded dinner on December 18th. $6,402. Facility paid later. I have the invoice and the ACH trail into your shell. I also have staffing board photos at 11:07 p.m. the week before. 3 names on the board, 1 aide on the floor. I have duplicate PT entries on November 12th and 16th. Same clinician initials while I was in imaging. And I have a forged PT sign-off with my name. The oven timer kept dinging while you turned people into math. The dentist reached for the photo, like it might burn him. The pearls clucked once, then went very still. Lendipis bravado thinned. You misunderstand how costs are allocated. I understand exactly, I said, and dropped the $2,835 pre-admission bill onto the table, the one dated November 1st. You billed me for services before my body crossed your threshold. That was my first receipt. I have 30 more. Would you like the pharmacy charges next? $412 for meds I never received. I kept the bag. 2 bottles. 2. Ava Sitt's pen tapped once. Twice. Mr. Doyle, your badge, please. He stood there, breathing like he'd swallowed ice. A second passed. Then another. Slowly he pulled the plastic card from his lanyard and set it next to the muffins. Security will escort you after this meeting, Ava said kindly. Like she was pointing out a restroom. Nora appeared in the doorway with 2 CNAs behind her, uniforms bright, eyes wary. She must have raced upstairs the moment she got my text boardroom. Now, her hands were folded steady. I looked at the board members. This isn't set to guillotine. It sets a level. I wist am not here to slash and torture. I level'm here to build. That means paying staff, feeding residents real food, and telling the truth on paper. It starts today. Nora stepped forward, surprised. Today? Today, I said. $5 hourly raises for night shift. Posted ratios that match the floor. Real-time call light dashboards in the hall by next week. And a new role, Director of Advocacy. I looked at her. If you want it, it's yours. Her mouth parted. She glanced toward the CNAs. One began to cry, hands to her face. The other made a sound I said I'll never forget. Half laugh, half relief. Nora swallowed. I do. Good, I said. You said I'll have direct access to me. Not a suggestion box. A door. Evan finally stepped fully into the room. You stir grandstanding, he whispered, as if embarrassed for me. You set this up to humiliate us. I set standards, I said. And I started with myself. He looked at the cream envelopes, at the wires, at Len's badge on the table. He was smart enough to recognize a structure when it was finished. Framing complete, drywall hung, cabinets leveled. The retired administrator cleared her throat for the first time. I didn't set no about any of this. You knew something didn't scent smell right, I said gently. Bleach and boiled carrots. People learn to live with it. That sep's how rot wins. That sep's over. Ava slid the cream envelopes across the table. 3 of them. She placed one in front of Evan, one in front of Maya Sip's empty chair, and one in front of me. Notices and reassignments. Evan stared at his name. What is this? Revocation of power of attorney. Documented after a capacity evaluation on December 11th, Ava said, and a restorative path. For both of you. He didn't open it. He couldn't. He was the boy with bent nails again, looking for a hand to guide the hammer. Look at me, I said. And he did. I sept not ruining your life. I sept repairing mine. You get to help, or you get out of the way. His throat worked. Dad, the oven timer dinged. Not from the kitchen, there wasn't one up here, but from my phone, where I'd set a single chime at 10 a.m., the time the deed recorded. The sound cut through the room like a clean cut through pine. I smiled. There sits your timestamp. Nora laughed once, wet. That sound. It sets ours now, I said. The dentist slumped. What happens next? I looked at the glass wall, the gray winter light. Inside me, the 3 months collapsed into a simple beam. Tomorrow, families get itemized refunds for phantom charges. I said, Nora restructures nights. We post ratios, meals match the menu. Vendors sign new agreements without dinners. And compliance stops being a word we laminate and starts being the way we breathe. Len gathered himself. A man who didn't best understand the house had already been lifted off its rotten sill. You still regret this. Lawsuits. Ava smiled. We stir fond of courts. They prefer receipts. He left without another word, a security guard falling into step at his side. The badge stayed by the muffins. Evan hadn't moved. He held the cream envelope like it might bleed. What do you want me to do? He asked finally. Small, not the version of him I'd waited to beat, but the one I'd hoped to see again. Come tonight, I said. I've got 3 letters to open at chapel. We shall read them together. He nodded, eyes glossy. Okay. The boardroom emptied the way storms do, first the downpour, then the hush. I stayed, staring at the ashwood grain, feeling the building settle around me. The vents breathed deeper now, or maybe I was hearing them differently. Ava stacked the papers. Efficient as ever. Its set's done. Not yet, I said. But the floor is level. She smiled without showing her teeth. That sip's your line, not mine. As we rolled out, Nora fell into step beside us. Director of Advocacy? She asked again, as if she might wake up at any second. Pick your scrub color, I said. You star visible now. She laughed, covering her mouth, then stopped in the elevator doorway and sobered. Harris, you just changed this place in an hour. No, I said, and watched the doors slide together. I just showed the receipts. We descended, the numbers over the door ticking down. In my head, the oven timer rang one final time. Not an ending, but a call to the table. For the first time since November 3rd, I felt hungry. Tomorrow would be fallout. Tonight, those envelopes. And after that, the thing I wanted more than revenge. A building that could finally breathe standards without choking on them. That night, the chapel heaters clanged like old pipes confessing sins. The light through the stained glass was weak, blues and reds spilling onto the wooden pews like bruises. I sat at the front with 3 cream envelopes on my lap. Evan stood near the back, hands shoved deep into his coat pockets, while Maya lingered at the doorway as if she might bolt if the air got too heavy. I opened the first envelope, inside the official revocation of the POA, notarized, sealed. I laid it on the pew between us. This is the end of you speaking for me. Evan's eyes flicked down. He looked pale, younger somehow. Maya shifted, restless. We were trying to help, she whispered.
Help?
My voice cracked against the wood beams. Help was a hand when I fell, not a signature that shoved me into a place that smelled like boiled carrots. The second envelope came next. Amendments to my trust. New allocations. New beneficiaries. My grandchildren if I ever had them. And a staff fund earmarked for night shifts. This building pays its people now. Even after I sip am gone. Maya Sip's painted nails trembled as she tucked her hair behind her ear. Her voice cracked in a way I hadn't sipsed heard before. Harris, please. We didn't set to understand how bad it was. I held her ski photo against the pharmacy bill, her smiling in fur trim while $412 drained from my account for meds that never touched my hands. You understood well enough. You chose to look away. The third envelope held restitution terms, laid out in Avaseb's clean legal phrasing. Evan stepped closer when I unfolded it, his voice small. Restitution? Yes, I said. Every dollar stolen by misuse, every kickback skimmed, every fake entree billed, it comes back. You sell pay it forward, with service, with time. You sell scrub floors before you inherit a cent. Maya broke then, tears slipping fast. You didn't mean to get caught. I cut in. The oven timer in the cafeteria dinged just then, faint but clear. The sound snapped through the air. Final as scripture, that sound followed me for 3 months, ding after ding, reminding me I was buried alive. Tonight, it tells me the grave's been filled back in with you on the outside, not me. Evan Sett's voice cracked. I thought you were slipping. I thought you Set already gone. I was, I admitted softly. Slipping into a hole you dug, but you forgot I still had the shovel. The next morning, the staff gathered in the lounge. Len's termination had already been made public. Whispers ran through the halls like a new current. Pay raises, ratios fixed, charts honest for once. Nurses who'd been silent for years were suddenly smiling. Victor leaned against the vending machine, watching. Morales sips up already, he said. It sips like they can breathe. Ava sent the AG packet from her office downtown at 10 a.m. sharp. I imagined it sliding across a polished desk, investigators reading lines that matched the ones in my log. Receipts became hammers. By afternoon, the cafeteria buzzed with chatter I hadn't heard before. Staff laughing, patients actually finishing meals. Nora walked in with her new badge, Director of Advocacy, and the room erupted in applause. She shook her head, cheeks red. Never thought I'd have a title that mattered, she said. It's not a title, I told her. It sets a key. Use it. That night, back in 212, my phone buzzed with a message from Evan, midnight, when shame hits hardest. Can we fix this? I typed back 3 words: truth, restitution, service. No anger, no flourish, just standards. I lay back in bed, listening to the building breathe differently now, like it was exhaling for the first time. The oven timer dinged from downstairs. One sharp note, it didn't mock anymore. It promised something change, already moving through the pipes. For the first time since November, I closed my eyes and slept without clutching a receipt in my fist. Valentine's week arrived with red paper hearts taped to the walls of Northlight. They looked fragile, curling at the edges, but they meant something. Love, or at least the hope of it. For the first time since I'd been wheeled in, I didn't feel mocked by decorations. I felt ready. On February 14th, the ombudsman arrived unannounced, winter wind still on her coat. She walked the halls with a clipboard, eyes sharp. Staff stiffened. But this time they didn't scramble to fake numbers, they were already meeting them. Ratios posted on the walls matched the bodies in the halls. A call light blinked. Nora timed it herself. 58 seconds before an aide appeared. The ombudsman turned to me in the lounge. Residents say things feel different. What changed? I leaned back, hands folded over the blue shirt I wore for dignity. We stopped cooking the books and started cooking meals. She smiled faintly, wrote something on her clipboard, and moved on. A week later, families filled the cafeteria for a town hall. Rows of plastic chairs squeaked under coats. Mothers, daughters, sons, they all came, holding their own packets of bills. I wheeled to the front, folder in my lap. Kiva stood beside me, calm as ever. Victor hovered near the back wall, camera discreet in his hand. Nora brought coffee to staff and patients alike, her new badge catching the light. I cleared my throat. For 3 months, I lived here as a number. So did your families. We were billed for phantom services, forged signatures, meals that never came. Tonight, those receipts speak. Gasps rippled when I held up the November 1st bill dated 2 days before I moved in. Then the forged PT sheet with my name scrawled, then Victor's photos staffing boards promising 3 aides when only 1 was present. A father in the crowd shot up from his chair, waving his daughter's Simpson voice. They billed us for 4 occupational therapy sessions in December. She was in the hospital that week. Another woman shouted, They charged my mother for deluxe entrees she can't even chew. The room boiled. For once Len wasn't there to smirk, his name was already blacklisted, but his shadow lingered in every angry voice. Ava raised her hand for calm. Refunds are being issued this week. Every phantom charge identified will be returned. Transparency is not optional anymore. You'll see itemized accounts monthly, and you'll have access to Nora Sip's advocacy office. Open door. The crowd calmed, but their eyes burned with a new trust, not in me as a savior, but in a standard they'd been denied for years. By February 20th, refunds hit accounts. Families whispered thanks in the hallways. Patients ate meals that matched the menu at last. Staff looked less hunted, more human. But justice wasn't only refunds. Justice needed accountability. In early March, Ava called me to her office. Len had agreed to separation terms after weeks of pressure. His side LLC's accounts, the vendor kickbacks, were being liquidated into facility repairs. Victor showed me photos of contractors replacing boiler valves, new equipment rolling into the kitchen. It's his money fixing what he broke, Victor said. Poetic, I murmured, flipping through the repair schedule. Justice reached my family too. Evan and Maya signed the restorative agreement Ava drafted. It wasn't just about money, it was about service. 10 Saturdays. That's what they owed. Real Saturdays working in the facility, shoulder to shoulder with staff they'd ignored. The first Saturday, I found Evan in the hallway, struggling to turn a patient gently without causing pain. His hands shook. The CNA guiding him said, "Slower. You have to listen to their body." I watched him nod, sweat on his forehead, lips pressed tight. For the first time, my son was learning something useful. Not from me, but from the people he'd dismissed. Maya worked in the dementia wing, handing out song sheets. When the patients hummed along, she blinked fast, mascara streaking. She sang too, voice thin but real. They weren't saints now, but they were serving, and service was the first language of repair. By March 11th, the cafeteria filled again, this time for something I'd never expected, the signing of a new charter. The charter created a patient council, transparent billing, and whistleblower protections. My hand trembled as I signed, but not from weakness. From something like pride. When I finished, I looked up and saw Nora standing taller than ever, badge gleaming. Victor raised a coffee cup in a quiet toast. Ava smiled faintly, satisfied. And Evan, he was in the back, arms crossed, but not defensive. After the meeting, he came to me. "Dad, I didn't know what I was doing before. I thought control meant protection. I was wrong." I nodded. "You stir learning. Keep learning." He swallowed hard. "You shall never forgive me, will you?" I put a hand on his shoulder. "Forgiveness is cheap. Standards are priceless. Live by them, and you shall never need my forgiveness." He blinked back tears, nodded once, and walked away to help a patient adjust a blanket. Later that week, I hung my old tool belt in the boiler room. The leather was cracked, the pouches worn, but it belonged there, not as a worker's gear anymore, but as a symbol. I stood in the humming heat, the pipes ticking with new life. For months, the oven timer had been my metronome of misery. Now the boiler's hum was my new rhythm. "Justice isn't at a word on a page," I whispered. "It stuffs a building that doesn't lie." The heat rolled over me, steady, honest. For the first time since November 3rd, I felt like the house I'd built my own life stood level again. March sunlight spilled through the lobby windows like it hadn't in years. The ficus by the entrance, sagging when I first arrived, looked alive again, leaves glossy, reaching toward the glass. I paused by it every morning now, palm brushing a leaf the way I might pat a dog's head. I wasn't wearing a wristband anymore. No barcode to beat me into meals or therapy. My name was back in my own mouth. Harris Kane, builder, owner, not patient, not number. Real therapy replaced forged charts. The PT actually showed up, stopwatch in hand, guiding my steps across the room. Slow, steady. "Heal first," she said, and when my legs burned, it was the kind of pain that meant progress, not neglect. Nora passed by in new scrubs. "Sky blue this time," she grinned. "Director of Advocacy gets to pick the color." "You wear it well," I said. Better than beige, she laughed, heading down the hall. The staff looked different now, less frantic, more present. They carried themselves like the floor finally belonged to them too. One afternoon, Ava met me in the office she carved out for herself at Northlight. She laid papers across the desk. The Kane Endowment is seated. 1 million set aside. Patient Council Fund. Staff support. Advocacy training. It is yours to steward. I signed slowly, savoring the sound of pen on paper. For once the ink didn't feel like a trap. Victor wandered in with a coffee. Endowment, huh? Fancy word for peace of mind. Fancy word for standards, I corrected. He raised the cup in a quiet toast. To standards. At home I changed the locks. The old keys clattered on the counter. Evan stood beside me, screwdriver in hand. He fitted the screws, tightened them with a care I'd never seen before. When we finished, he stepped back. Stronger now, he said. Better framed, I agreed. Silence hung between us. Not hostile this time. Repair. Not perfect, not forgiven, but repair. Maya surprised me. She started hosting music nights in the dementia wing. At first I thought it was penance, but the first evening I watched her lead, I saw something different. Patients hummed along, some tapping hands, some singing songs they'd forgotten at breakfast. Maya's voice wasn't polished. It cracked, it wavered, but it was true. Afterward she found me in the hall, cheeks flushed. They remembered lyrics, just for a moment. That sip's more than money can buy, I said. She nodded, eyes glistening. For once she didn't defend herself. She just let the moment stand. Spring crept into Boston. Realtors started calling. Word spreading fast, an investor-owned facility with renewed staff and clean audits was worth millions. One slick suit leaned across my dining table, numbers spilling from his mouth. You could walk away with more than you ever imagined. I closed the folder and pushed it back. Some buildings you sell, some you keep. This one, you keep. He looked baffled. I didn't set to explain. Northlight wasn't nested a flip. It was a standard. On March 28th, I walked the halls alone. No wheelchair, cane tapping softly. Residents waved. Staff nodded. The oven timer dinged from the kitchen, sharp and final. But it didn't mock anymore. It sang like a bell before dinner, calling people to gather. I stopped. Hand on the wall calendar. The red circle around February 3rd was fading now, ink dull. 3 months I'd given myself. I smiled. I had built more than an escape. I had built a foundation. That night I sat by the window in my own living room, watching snow melt into the soil. I thought of the first day, November 3rd, when Evans signed forms like nails into a coffin. I thought of the smell of bleach and carrots, the forged PT sheets, the silence of a son who called betrayal protection. And I thought of now, this house, my locks, my name intact. I whispered into the quiet the way I always did at the end of a story. You didn't lose me, you gave me away. I just learned how to hold myself again. The words hung in the air, not bitter, not triumphant, just true. I closed my eyes. For the first time in a long time, I felt level.